Welcome back. Thank you for continuing the journey with us as we explore marketing in hospitality, tourism, and the recreation industries. We have worked really hard to get to this point, and we are about to transition from strategy development into the tactical plan. And so again, most often people think of marketing as simply the tactics that people do, but we know already that it's really about the strategy. So you've started today and you're ready to go with this target market objective. And really what we're transitioning from on the strategy side is this marketing, promotional, and communication mix. More specifically, what we're going to be doing is taking your marketing objective that you've written, and we're going to transition and really fill out all these boxes. And the reason we're doing that is to make sure, again, we've developed the right tactical plan for your target market. So after we have our marketing objective, I always want you to remember to consider the 5 phases of the experience. Remember that in our industry, those 5 phases are critical and so often missed by our organizations. So go back to the chapter on experiences, because our goal is to create these authentic experiences across an individual's visit in our establishments. It's not just about the destination, it's about anticipation, travel to the destination, travel from, and their reflection. And those are the things we want to always measure in our industry. Now we're going to be moving from that thought to our marketing mix specifically. And we're going to take this in order on the worksheet. And if you'll notice again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because I want you to think about it in terms of making these decisions and processing them in this order. So simply what we're going to work on today is the marketing mix. And the marketing mix specifically looks at operational decisions in our organizations, more specifically about the offering that we're giving to this target market. Have you created the right product or experience for them? We're going to look at distribution, and we're going to look at pricing. If we're priced right through the right channels and offering the high quality experience that we can, it's going to make, again, communicating with this target market so much easier because we're giving them what they want and need. Next, after we develop that right marketing mix, we're going to work on the promotional mix. What is the message that you're sending? What kind of brand message have you identified and are sending to this target market? What kind of collateral are you using to communicate with this market? And what kind of promotional events that we'll work on in subsequent lessons? Next, after we've made those decisions, then we're finally ready to talk to the market. We're going to talk to them specifically using the variety of channels that appeal to this target market, and we're going to use the communication mix, or all of the communication tools in our bag of tricks, to make the best decisions for this target market. So keep in mind, we have spent a long time getting to this point, but we've got a few more decisions to make before we get started. So today I want to start with specifically, again, thinking about this as a cycle, thinking about this as multiple decisions to be made, and thinking about this as a complex set of tools and issues related to marketing development. It's not as easy as most people believe, and I hope you've bought into that all semester long. So again, as we focus, what we're going to look at first is taking your target market objective. So for example, as I've used this example before, I'm going to increase the number of 55 to 70-year-old competitive athlete men, right, for my athletic fitness club from a 5-mile radius from 10 to 40 this next year. Right? I have a specific target market objective. And what we're going to do now is work in the marketing mix. So very specifically, we're going to look at what kind of decisions could I make related to the product offering or the experience that we've talked about briefly already. So specifically, maybe I'm going to hire a 55-year-old plus personal trainer. And that might be something to add to the experience for this target market. I'm not talking about any other target market now. I'm talking about this target market. And what is it that we offer operationally to this target market to make it even appeal to them to begin with? What kind of experience? Maybe I'm going to develop a list of competitive activities or events that happen in our area that appeal to this target market age. Maybe I'm going to create a club for this group because they have social interest, and we're going to do a senior-only club at our fitness center. Again, keep in mind we are brainstorming ideas. What are all the things we could do to really appeal to this target market that our competitors aren't doing, right? That really niche us to serve them ultimately better than everyone else. So as we move through, I want to talk about just this quality experience first. And to help us with that, first we want to wrap our arms around what does it mean, really? What are we talking about our offerings or our experience? Really here we're talking about the physical goods or products, programs, facilities, services, or policies or really what is that authentic experience presented to the customer? So more specifically, again, what is your organization doing to appeal to this target market that once we tell them about what you're offering, they are automatically going to come to you versus any other competitor because you're doing it better than everyone else. So this whole concept of the offering or experience that we're created is important for us to think about first, because if you think about your brand positioning that you just completed, you may have identified that we aren't situated exactly where we should be for this target market. And if we're not, then how do we improve our position and move into the direction to be the ultimate provider for this target market? Because as I've said to you before, if you're going to go after a target market, then you better own it. And if you don't own it, then you're going to be like everybody else, dabbling in a market that we're not going to make a significant difference for this organization. So your goal here is to create, again, the best experience, authentic experience that you can for this target market. So when we consider all of the offerings we currently have, plus maybe some of the ones we might add, we want to take into account a historic model in marketing called the product life cycle. And the product life cycle for me is a really important tool that we can use in marketing. We have for many years. It's existed for a really long time, but I would say we really don't utilize its power as much as we should. So I want to take a step back and I want you to consider just the product life cycle and how this is going to relate to your target market and to your marketing objective. So the concept of the product life cycle simply says this: there are 4 distinct stages of an experience. We go from an introduction phase to a growth stage, maturity, and then a decline. Meaning every single offering an organization has, we could plot on this product life cycle right now. So for example, something in the introduction stage of the life cycle is in early development. So if it's in early development, the only people who know about it are you and the people you've shared that information with. So let's say I'm going to hire this brand new 55-year-old trainer. Well, right now, nobody knows that we're going to hire this trainer for that target market. So I would consider that offering at the introductory stage of the life cycle. So more specifically, there are no to little sales, right? No one knows about it, so no one's consuming it. There are lots of costs. I've got to bring in this person. I've got to create the environment so that's good. And we have no profit, right, related to it yet. So think of not only each individual offering in an organization, but an organization overall. You might be working with a brand new organization in our industry. And if they're brand new, no one knows about it. They have lots of costs associated with starting up this organization, right? And they're not making any money yet. So you can see across sales, or we could say participation, there's nothing happening, but high costs, no participation or little participation. The only people who know about it are you and me, kind of idea. So what we want to do is the evolution of an organization could be along this vein, right? Or it could be flat all the way across. Lots of business concepts have died on the vine, right? Great concepts. Everybody around the table thinks it's brilliant. But as we've shared and talked about before, it's never gotten off the ground. Well, it might not be because the concept isn't great. It might just be that they hadn't reached the target markets in meaningful ways. So what the kind of stereotypical product life cycle is, after something's introduced, what would move next, the product would move into the growth stage, where increasing sales, increasing competition, some profits, and costs are reducing because we've had all those startup costs and now we're reaping some benefit of that investment over time. So as things improve, you know competition is coming out of the woodwork if you've got a great idea and concept. So, for example, if you've targeted this senior population at your health club and have done an amazing job, your competitors, if they're smart, are looking around going, hey, what is that? What are they doing? How come they've got all these things going on for this market? And if it's a big enough market, they think it's a good enough concept that they can do, they're going to try and mimic that, right? They're going to try and do that. We see that all the time in every part of our industry. You could name the example in food and beverage and lodging, right? In tourism and attractions and events, we see people replicating really great ideas. So we know competition is going to come through the woodwork if you've done something well. And that's why it's really important we're in a continuous cycle of market planning. If we rest on our laurels, right, we're going to have a couple maybe not so good things happen. So as we move from growth, the next logical stage is maturity, where things start to flatten out. Demand equals supply. We have a bunch of people competing for the same markets, but the market is flat. There's not a lot of new people interested in it. And things, again, over time, right, we've gone through the cycle, and now we have reducing costs increasing profits, and constant sales. So it's kind of more predictable. And this is where I see a lot of organizations in our business really run into some trouble. You know, they've done a great job, they've gotten to this point, and they go, now we can just rest on our laurels and operate. Well, again, this is where we have to be really careful, because very quickly between a mature market and a declining market is death. So reducing sales, constant cost, reducing profits, where all of a sudden we look around and we go, what happened? Our business is gone. Several of the examples I shared with you this whole semester are case study after case study of real people in our business saying, oh my gosh, we were serving the preschool market forever. We were the ones who did it so well. And all of a sudden we look around and we don't have them coming anymore. What happened? Well, time and time again, we've seen things happen, but they don't need to happen. If we apply the product life cycle in a really smart way and really use the concepts related to it, we can help improve our business. Because if your organization or if your offering that you have for your target market is in a mature market, you need to be prepared for that. So, introductory stage of the life cycle, again, we see examples today of concepts simply come from foot golf. You know, the golf industry is trying to push their season. They're also trying to diversify their product, because what's happening in golf is a flat market. There aren't any more people interested in it before, and it's an oversaturated supply issue, right? There's a whole bunch of golf courses to pick from. So one of the things that they've done is try to reinvent what they're doing in golf. So foot golf tends to be kind of a new concept. And if some of you haven't heard about that, that makes a lot of sense, because it's in the introductory stage of the life cycle. Maybe a few of you know because you're avid golfers or you read golf publications, but for a whole bunch of us, we're like, what is foot golf? Right? Kind of idea. One of the other trends we see, kind of a newer thing coming out in the market, is this whole idea of a jet ski and an ORV combined. So kind of like a duck boat, if you've seen those, but for individuals. So now I can take it on land and sea, a concept. So again, if you haven't heard of that concept yet, it makes sense because it's in the introductory stage. So a lot of people in both these cases have invested a lot of money and resources, and not a lot of people know about it yet. So their job is to get the word out so people know and they start purchasing or consuming the experience. So what the product life cycle does for us is really powerful, because once we've identified where we fall in the product life cycle, we're ready to identify what kind of tactics we should apply in our marketing plan. That's why I love tools like this. Tools like this just tell me what to do. I don't have to pretend I have my crystal ball and working with my target market to try and figure it out. So, declining examples that are real life in today's place is casinos closing. Again, talk about, a changing market. The whole gaming industry has changed dramatically in 20 years. But we have casinos closing regularly that we never saw before. Because again, it makes sense. It's a mature market, and something needs to happen if they're going to survive. Secondly, how about a lot of the pizza companies, and certainly McDonald's has been talked about a lot in recent times, because, and it says 5 reasons McDonald's is falling apart. Again, a historically solid, beautiful, powerful company has now competitors out of the woodwork. And how are they finding their niche? And they've kind of lost sight of who their target markets are and what they're providing them, because they've rested on their laurels for those years. So just quickly, a few examples in our business, but I know you can plot your organization as well. Where are they currently in this market? And again, how can the product lifecycle help us determine what to do if we're in that place? So further, here are some characteristics that help better define, again, each of the stages of the life cycle. Again, sales, we know, kind of has that pattern that we just saw. Costs, high costs initially, they start to flatten out, right? Profits, negative, rising, high, and then if we're not in business anymore, they're completely gone, right? Customers, those early innovators, happen at the introductory stage, the early adopters in the growth stage, the middle majority, and then the laggards are in the decline stage, right? And the competitors, few or none at the introduction level. Growth, they're growing, because again, if you've got something good, they're coming after you. Starting to decline in the mature stage, because not everybody's surviving that, right? And there's no new demand, and then finally declining. So helps us, and you should be able to at this point, plot where your organization is, and certainly plot the offerings that you're providing to your target market. Now, once we know that, we're ready to help us determine what tactics we should take. And again, I love every tool in marketing that helps me decide what to do because I am overwhelmed by the choices we have available to us. And all along the semester, as I've shared with you, is you don't want to just do things to do things. You want to do things because they have meaning. You want to do things because they're going to produce a result. So, for example, if you have something at the introductory stage of the life cycle, what kind of communication tactic should you take? Well, let's face it, we've got to get the word out to as many in this target market as possible, as quickly as we can, with not a lot of expense if we can help it, because we know what our budgets are like in our industry, right? We don't have a lot. So what kind of creative ways can we reach a lot of people? And one of the most powerful ways is going to be public relations. Public relations, again, free media or channel work, because you've got something to talk about. Well, if you have a really cool, interesting concept, then that should be something that's newsworthy. And if you do heavy public relations, heavy promotional events, right? Welcomes, celebrations to introduce your concept, take your product to people. The more people we get it to, the better. And then heavy advertising. So in general, we're going to do heavy advertising, social marketing, we're going to do promotional marketing, and we're going to do heavy public relations. Those are the tactics we have to use if you fall in the introductory stage. So we're going to have costs associated with marketing communication early on, just like other costs are high as well. And those kinds of investments, if organizations don't make them, are going to have, again, the best product in the world, never get off the stage, never get to the target market because we haven't reached them in a meaningful way. As you move down the continuum of the product life cycle, we go from the introductory stage again to the growth stage. And in the growth stage, what we want to do is lighten up the costs associated that we've spent money on, such as straight advertising. Hopefully we still have something newsworthy and we're telling stories about how people are engaged with what we're doing. I'm taking that 60-year-old competitive athlete and showing what we've done to change his life, and we're making a difference, and I'm going to tell those stories to the media. Heavy social media, because hopefully I have people liking me and fans and people wanting to engage in our own media activities. And I'm going to look at, continue to look at sales promotions and ways to get people to try it. Again, these are just the early adopter stage, so I've got to find the people in my target market. I've got a couple people already with us, but I'm trying to get a whole bunch more. Because remember, who's on my tail? My latest competitor. Because if I've got something good, then again, they're right behind me. So I'm going to continue to use heavy tactics to reach the market that I'm targeting in this case. When we move up, though, we're going to transition tactically from the introductory to the growth stage to the mature stage to more direct sales activities. Because now we're talking one-on-one, one-on small group relationships that we need to build with people. And we don't want to do that necessarily early on, because I'm not reaching enough people in the introductory stage to solely do direct sales, one-on-one pounding the pavement. But as I move to a growth and mature stage, it's all about relationships, because now consumers have a choice. They have lots of places they can go play foot golf, or they have lots of places they can buy their RV, ORV, their jet ski kind of thing. Where before you might have been the only one, now you're not. So loyalty programs, developing relationships with your consumers very specifically, making sure that they're a part of your organization is what's going to be the difference here. So if you haven't treated them well along the way, if quality was not a priority for you, you're in big trouble now, because again, people will have choices to go have these experiences other places. And I think, again, in our business, it's one of the things our industry struggles with. We think we've got the greatest concept, so we don't focus on super high quality right from the get-go. Well, you better, because nothing worse to have a bad experience early on, and it's going to be more difficult than ever to try and get people through that cycle up to again, a mature stage. One of the, I think, most interesting things is, what do you do when you're in a mature stage, though? What kind of tactics should you be using? Well, let's face it again. Supply is high, right, but flat. Demand is flat. There's nothing new happening. So intuitively, it makes sense that you rethink about first of all, what you offer to the target market. And is there a way to do a product modification to what you offer to try and get people back to the introductory stage of the life cycle? As simple as that. So we want to go from again, the mature or declining stage back to the introduction to keep the cycle going. So again, this is a powerful tool for us to consider in our organizations to plot where we are, figure out tactically what we might do, and then strategically be ready to make some change. So again, in that mature market, I might modify my product. It's like the foot golf idea, right? It resurrected, or disc golf from several years ago idea. All of that took the golf concept and made some modifications. I might look for a new target market, one that hasn't been reached. And really, my example of my target market, if I was opening a brand new health club, I probably wouldn't have targeted a 55 to 70-year-old competitive athlete male. The market's not that big, but I'm in a mature market, so I'm going to find these very distinct niches of people to serve that have been ignored. And again, several examples across the semester. I hope that makes a lot of sense to you. So in my case, it makes a lot of sense to go after that market. If I was at the introductory stage, it would not make a lot of sense. Too small of a number to go after. So we're going to go after a new market. We're going to modify what we do in our product, or maybe we're going to offer a completely different product. And because I'm picking on the golf industry, I'll go back to that. They went into the cross-country skiing business in their off-season, and they did that largely because they had land, they had beautiful land, right? And they had an empty golf course in the winter. So they completely created a new product offering at their golf course, so they're able to do that. So having kind of reviewed that, what I want you to think about now is, where is your organization? Where do they fall in the product life cycle? What are you going to do if you're going to introduce something new to this target market? You're going to be at the introductory stage, and what kind of tactics are you going to need to take? We need to better use all of the tools in our marketing toolkit, whether they were created 50 years ago or they're new concepts from today, and make the best decisions for our organizations we can. Again, everybody can spend a marketing budget, not everybody is good at it. We want you to be great at it. We want you to embrace the tools and apply them, and I can't wait to see what you've decided. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.